Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, and it would help if I actually did this. Seems I forgot. All right. Seems I forgot. And I forgot to do that too. All right, so couple people watching, may as well go live so you're not just sitting there waiting for whatever more minutes. I suppose it doesn't really matter when we go live, does it? Links in the description. I'm sorry, links in the top of the chat. Please feel free to use it. Well, thanks, Dark North. And of course, you're welcome to come in. What's all this? Well, it's a show, kind of an impromptu show, because our brother fell asleep and didn't wake up in time, and then was an hour late, and then didn't want to do it, and then blah, 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 blah. Come on in, Sammy. You got a minute? Come on in, Halsey. You have sleeping problems anyway, Sammy. Don't kid me. If you needed to be asleep right now and could be asleep right now, you would be asleep right now. I should have made those rhyme, but I didn't see where it was going before I started. Yeah, I know. Stood up again. I know. Sometimes me, sometimes him. But, you know, Robbie has sleeping problems, so when he can get some sleep, I'm happy for him. Hit the link, guys. No show without you. You know what's funny? As much as I'm like extremely willing, peace and respect, Mac the Human, as much as I'm able to go on and on and on about these ancient religious stories, I'm actually quite clumsy just trying to come up with something to talk about. And oddly enough, I'm also a relatively shy person. You wouldn't think so. I've practiced a lot to get past that. But just the same, I'm naturally shy and quiet. If you spoke to Beck about it, they would tell you that I'm normally really quiet, weirdly enough, which you guys don't see much of here. Do I always operate with camera on? No. Peace and respect, Hillary's. No, I don't always operate with camera on. A lot of times when I go into someone else's show, if I didn't want to put on this shirt, if I didn't want to comb my hair, I just, what do you got there, Mac? Let's see, how do I do that? I got to open up another YouTube and then go into my show. Then I can hit a link. See what you got, Mac. Sharmer!
What's up?
What's up? How you doing, brother?
Good, man.
You want to see what Mac sent us here?
I do.
I have no idea what it is. I trust Mac, but I have no idea what it is. Let's see.
He's porn bombed us.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, not likely.
That's so like Mac.
Okay. No, it's not. All right, so let's see what this Uptown Church Sunday sermon. It's bound to be horrible.
It's better be. Better not be trying to convert me, Mac.
but we are looking at verse 3 of Psalm 23. So if you have a physical Bible, if you have a phone Bible, if you have a tablet Bible, that Psalm 23, if we describe this psalm authority and dominion, it's a little bit different from what we think of when we think of a shepherd. We also see that God is described as a protector. He's a fierce warrior. He's swift. He's strong. And he administers vengeance and justice on our behalf.
I am against the idea of Jesus being a total wimp. Have you ever had Jesus like described as a total wimp to you?
Yes, absolutely. I've pictured him that way. It's like the full-on pacifist.
Yeah, I don't really think so. I mean, I don't think the Jews are wrong about the idea of like a warrior king. Not that he's like, a caricature like, Dwayne Johnson performing The Rock. I don't think that would be it. But
someone has to make a Jesus that's like looks like Dwayne Johnson. That has to be the thing.
That would be pretty funny. But he is called to be like a commander of 144,000 troops. And you can't be like mealy-mouthed and shy,
Yeah. So we used to think that on Earth he was like this pushover that would stand there and take, a beating to the death before he'd raise a hand. But once he got to heaven, he was Kenny Rogers on the horse with the bow and arrow, with his Kenny Rogers clones, all white. Male.
Of course they're white.
Females, but they all have beards now and look like Kenny. Riding into battle against the. And I always thought it was like spirit against spirits. I didn't really picture Jesus.
Explain this battle to me. Like, what's this battle?
Well, it's essentially it's not much of a battle against man. Like God's he's gonna get rid of Christendom first, so that's all the other religions than Jehovah's Witnesses,
which are correct objectively, of course.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course,
and then because they're correct, the world's leaders will turn on Jehovah's Witnesses, which is the scene of the people in the field moving in, like SWAT moving in on them, and that's when Kenny Rogers will come out of the clouds and shoot his arrows at the oncoming SWAT, and that's the moment, like, boom, all hell's going to break loose, and all the wicked people, which is everyone, hail, brimstone, earthquakes, fire, you name it. It's going to be just a glorious, merciful slaughter.
Merciful. Oh, that's nice. That's much better than the Calvinists.
Of the whole earth. To then basically resurrect them back slowly, chronologically, from most recent dead to most furthest dead.
I actually think that part's true. That the resurrection has to go in that order.
Well, yeah, because they'll be able to handle it better, and then they can then teach the older ones that come back.
Wait! How do they logic their way into that from the text, though?
It'll all be in Revelation. Will be something in Revelation.
Okay, the only thing I can think of that even suggests something like that from within the book of Revelation is the fifth trumpet. Those cry out martyred from the past for the testimony of Jesus Christ, cry out from under the throne, saying, "How much longer?" And the reply, which I think this is just like a narrative, so that it can be said, not that dead people know anything or are talking about anything. That they're to wait until everyone who's going to be martyred is, and that's the only thing that even remotely says that. So I'm curious how they count. The paradigm I've accepted to be raised to heaven, flesh and all, or to be abducted, depending on how you look at it, maybe voluntarily abducted. And then seeing what heaven is and deciding that you're okay with it, and then people restored to great health, repopulating grandma, and if it was in this order, although it could be faster than this, because it only takes about a year and a half to have a baby and recover. Your daughter gives birth to grandma, who gives birth to great grandma, who gives birth to great great grandma, etc. In a trickle down, restoring all the population. But I only see justification for that if there's physical flesh in heaven. Do the JWs believe physical flesh in heaven, or
no?
See, now why bother?
I think that it's one of those doctrines that grew out of necessity more than it's in the Bible. It's like it's also doctrine that they're going to spend some period of time burying all the dead.
And okay, you lost me on that.
From Armageddon. There's going to be a lot of bodies to bury.
Okay. Well, that really speaks against something Jesus said. Would you happen to recall what it is that Jesus said that I'm referring to that would preclude that?
I don't know. I mean, he said like about wiping every tear and death will be no more.
Yeah. But there's one line in particular that comes to my mind that says that wouldn't be so. Someone's asking, how do I go to heaven? And he's, gives them kind of a general outline. And then he says, well, I'm not ready to go to heaven yet because I have someone who just died. I need to go bury him. He responds, let the dead bury the dead.
Okay.
So I wonder if that line's just missing from the JW Bible completely. I wouldn't be surprised if it was completely out of there.
But what does that mean? Let the dead bury the dead.
Let those who are going to die, those who are wanting to stay and won't take the ascension, let them bury the dead.
Okay. Sorry. I was thinking from the Christian frame.
Yeah. Well, that's another line that doesn't work in the Christian frame, does it?
No.
So,
what was the verse again? Let the dead bury the dead.
Oh, I don't know numbers at all.
That's all right. I should be able to find
it. How I usually find stuff is I just Google the line, and it tells me where to look in the text.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got the lines like so close.
Matthew 8:22.
There you go.
And Luke 9:60. That's a lot of verses. Jesus said to him, keep following me and let the dead bury their dead.
Right.
And Luke 9:60 says, but he said to him, let the dead bury their dead, and you go declare abroad the kingdom of God.
Yep.
Wow, that's almost like one's copying the other.
Well, yeah, they are.
I know.
And but there's a
sorry.
oh, you're yes, you goofed me. Okay, I fell for it. I totally fell for it. You're right. You got me. Rebuke and reprove. Feel free to come in. You have been relatively impressive lately with your ability to, grab onto a topic and stay on it with a little bit of encouragement from the host. And I want to encourage that kind of positive Christian behavior in you. So feel free to hit the link. We'll bring you up and we'll have a talk. Oh, and by the way, how could you possibly still be? And I haven't gone back since you proclaimed that I have you blocked, but here you are in my chat. So I have had you unblocked for a couple weeks now, which is the last time I went in there and unblocked people. Just like I told you, you are not blocked. Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out where the JWs got that. Okay. So here's my accusation. People pray accidentally and purposefully and also exercise their own biases. Oh, look who it is. It's not rebuke and reprove. Peace and respect, Faisal. How you doing, brother?
Peace and respect. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Good to see you.
Good seeing you as well.
I got a share screen here. What do we got?
This is their meeting schedule, I guess you could call it.
Okay.
From July 9. It's like maybe 2015. So they started with
this is a JW
Psalm
site.
13 and prayer, yeah. Opening comments. So I think it might be this one. Oh no, 60.
While you're working on that, Faisal, peace and respect and welcome, and thanks for coming by, and also Cryptomeria, Pixie Storms. Faisal, is there anything that you know of in Quran which lends to the idea of first of all, this earth being fixed at some point?
Earth being fixed at some point?
Yeah, like it's relatively broken right now. Is there any point at which it would be fixed? Peace and respect, Will Freeman.
When the Earth will be fixed, there's no, not really. And the concept of the Earth itself is that this is meant to be a temporary abode. So it is supposed to come to an end.
Okay.
Right. And the Quran's focus is on remember, the Quran is a guidance to mankind. And the focus in the Quran is what human beings need to do, not necessarily what the earth is. The one thing that is very clear is on the day of judgment, the earth will be destroyed completely.
Okay, I'm with that. You got anything that you want to say right now, Will?
No, sir.
Don't call me sir. I'm not that old. All right, it's all you, Sammy.
It's I've just fell down the rabbit hole as I always do on this bloody site. But look at this. Viewing sacrifices, saying perhaps you had opportunities for higher education or prominence or for financial security. Financial security, not wealth or, riches, just being financially secure.
Right.
But you decided not to pursue them. Many of our brothers and sisters have left behind lucrative positions in the fields of business, entertainment, education, or sports. Now that the time has passed and the end has not yet arrived, do you fantasize about what could have happened had you not made those sacrifices?
And why you should feel good about doing something stupid and ruining your life for a church.
Yeah, they try and use Paul.
Peace and respect, Stephanie.
Yeah. So sad.
That's like, isn't that like a sunk cost fallacy? when you start telling someone why they should feel good about having, wasted some part of their life, you're trying to comfort them
Yeah,
in a
to justify
sunk
it.
cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next question for Faisal. Okay, I'm relatively familiar with the idea of penance or temporary punishment being delivered or executed through hell, and then the idea that those who have served their sentence may be in some level of Jannah after that.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you know of about restoration of people who have died in the past, no matter their condition, whether or not they have to serve some hell first or not, or whatever?
As in, when you say people who've died in the past, do you
Yeah.
mean, what do you mean? Because for a Christian, it could, dying means something different from a Christian perspective.
Oh,
But
interesting.
right,
Well, tell me your perspective on that first.
my understanding was that if you're not saved by through Jesus Christ, you've died. Right? That's a different concept of death from what I understand. So death to me is essentially the separation of the body from the soul, or the soul from the
Okay.
body, if you're materialistic, right? So death, everyone who has died from the time of Adam all the way to now, and actually even before the time of Adam, because we believe that the um, even creation that was here before
Mm-hmm.
human beings, right, will be resurrected on the day of judgment, and they will stand in front of God and be judged, right? So
Okay.
essentially, the day of resurrection is it's a very cosmic event, pretty much, because it's not just human beings that will be judged. Even the planets and everything else around us would be judged, right? So there's a very clear indication that the sun, the moon, the stars, the star being Venus, that has been worshipped through history, right?
Okay.
Um, they will end up in hell, pretty much, right? Because they were worshipped besides God throughout history, and
Okay.
their end is hellfire.
You got anything right now, Batman? Five, four.
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
Damn, you could have at least given me 10.
Nah, I'm not that patient, bro. Peace and respect, Halcyonic. Welcome. You got anything right away?
No, I'm just still listening.
Okay. All right. So Faisal, just because I'm more interested in, because I just don't know. I've just begun a study on Quran, as you know.
Yeah.
Is there, how do I say that, non-spiritual, absolutely physical, need to eat food and sleep, or sleep maybe not, whatever, physical flesh of those who end up in some level of Jannah, some higher level?
So the understanding in Islam is that we will have some sort of a body, but it won't be the
Okay.
same material or the same type of body that we have here,
Okay.
right? So the other piece, like, do we need to eat? No, we don't need to eat. Eat would be more of a pleasure, right? You would
Okay.
eat for your pleasure, right?
Okay.
You don't need to sleep, but you can sleep for your pleasure, right? So the idea is that you would perform
Sounds
actions
pretty good.
for your pleasure, not for your need, right? And one way that Allah has described it as you would not have any more needs when you're in Jannah,
Okay.
right? So you don't have to work for something. It's just to enjoy life.
This reminds me of the movie Defending Your Life.
I haven't
They
watched
had
it.
well, it's an American Hollywood film. I think I've got the title close to correct or correct. It's the idea of being judged for your life that you had once you've died. So when a person dies, they find themselves in this other world, and the other world is very practical and real, and they're there to defend what they thought was true, and that's the judgment. So the whole point of having this life in that movie is to have overcome fear, because it seems, at least I think, and a lot of other people think, that fear is one of our greatest enemies. So you only get to move on to the next stage of humanity if you've overcome your fear. So they review your life and see if you overcame fear, or if you overcome fear in the moment that you're being judged. Either way is fine. But the part of the premise is like fear of body image. That's a fear. Like if you're worried about your weight, that's a fear. So in this place where you're judged, there's like awesome food, and you can eat as much as you want, and you can feel satisfied, or you can become hungry again right away and just eat more. But you're never going to actually like become unhealthy from, I don't know, eating 3 chocolate cakes in a row would be just fine,
Okay.
What Faisal just described to me, with all the, sleep for the pleasure, not the need, and eat for the pleasure, sounds like something a Kardashev 4 civilization could achieve.
That's actually a very interesting point that you've brought up. So if you were to look at the Kardashian scale, right, the idea that the Kardashian 4 civilization, I think that's the universe level, right?
Well, certainly they would be able to terraform a planet, translate a lot of living creatures from one very far distance to another. They would have no problem doing those things.
Yeah. But Kardashian 4, I think that definitely is. So Kardashian 1 is your planet levels, 2 is your star level, 3 is a galaxy level, and 4 is, I think,
Right.
the universe level, right? And then, so
it says Kardashev 4 harness the power of its own supercluster of galaxies,
okay,
and eventually its universe of origin, and effectively become immortal.
yeah. So again, these are like human concepts of what this level would be, right? But when you take it to the next level, and then the next level, and then the next level, and ultimately you will get to a point where you cannot have any more levels, because that's the only entity at that level. That's one way of looking at how or looking at what God is, or one way of sort of arriving at a concept of what God would be.
Okay, you're gonna have to summate that for me. I may have missed the point, because it seemed like there should have been an impact there that I didn't get.
Yeah. So you know how so a Cartesian 4, to me, from what I understood, 428 is you're saying that it should be an civilization that's able to either collectively or individually harness all the power of a supercluster, so to speaking, or let's say how you would say Laniakea, right? The giant supercluster which we are a part of, right?
Yeah.
5 may be the universe. Okay. 6 may be multiverse. whatever is out there.
Well, it says that 4 is eventually harnesses the entire universe
Okay,
and
that's fine.
become gods. So I think that's what you're saying, but they're
No,
saying
I'm
that
not.
that's at
I don't think.
Kardashev thought.
I don't think at level 4 you've become God.
Well, let's not
'Cause-
go over the numbers. Just go with the idea.
yeah. So what I'm getting to for 28 is that if you take that to the next level, right? 5 would be like a civilization or an entity, right? That's able to harness power of multiple universes or something like a super universe, right? That has multiverses within it. Okay. And then 6 would be another level beyond that, right? And then essentially you get to 7 or whatever number. But at a certain point, you've got to an entity that there cannot be something more powerful than that, right? Because there's literally nothing that that entity cannot do. Do you understand?
In which
428.
case,
Yeah. So if that entity can do everything, it's all powerful. Essentially, that entity is what God would be, from what my understanding of God is.
well, that's interesting. That's a pretty practical God.
It's actually a very interesting way of looking at it.
I mean, that lends to some plausibility, I suppose.
And let me put it this way: if you can say that there is a level 8, then for me, entity 7 is not God. Entity 8, level 8 is, because that's the most powerful one. Essentially, whatever is at the apex, whatever is at the top, is what God would be.
Let me know if the writing's big enough.
What writing?
Oh, I shared a doohickey.
Share it on the one you've already got up. Just use that as a search engine.
What do you? That is the results.
Are you sharing the
Just
screen?
oh, here we go.
This is the highest, but I don't know how serious this site is. Because we've looked up weird superheroes on here before and brojos, but a type triple X civilization exists beyond the highest planes. Jill will like this. Outside reality and non-reality.
Ooh,
They are the
outside of
gate-
non-reality?
Yep. But
Wow.
as well as outside reality, which is non-reality, but outside of that as well, which is in reality. Whoa. They are the gatekeepers of the beyond. They are the beyonders.
This looks like Kardashev fan fiction.
Yeah, well, look, I can go back and
You'll see stuff like that in comics.
pick another type.
Is there a comic about Kardashev civilizations?
No, but you'll find that concept being used in comics. Like the structure, for example, or the hierarchy, right? You'll
Yeah.
find that in certain comics, both Marvel and DC.
Right.
And it looks like essentially a lot of them are just like existing in higher planes outside reality. But see, this one isn't outside non-reality. And their ultimate goal is to join the supreme beings at the highest level of the afterlife.
I don't know how to say something is, first of all, outside of reality. You know, I don't know what the heck that would mean.
I think that means like that probably means the universe. Like take for example in DC Comics, right? You have what they call like fifth and sixth dimensional beings seventh dimensional beings, right? And their existence is so potent that they can literally like shape the local reality that we're in. So we would consider them gods, but the funny enough thing is that they wouldn't consider themselves gods.
I've said that before about angels.
So type 5, be advanced enough to escape their universe of origin and explore the multiverse. Such a civilization would have mastered technology to a point where they could simulate or build a custom universe. They will have mastered the new laws of physics and have almost complete control over the fabric of reality. Now humanity is basically impossible to destroy by its own inhabitants, which has reached the decillions. That's a lot of people.
I don't even know what that number means. I'm just
Neither
gonna
do I.
I'm just gonna let that go.
I wonder where they start losing.
33 zeros at the decillion.
33 zeros. Okay. Well, that's a number I cannot comprehend.
A type 6 exists in the megaverse, is capable of creating and maintaining the fundamental laws of universes. They exist in an infinite amount of simultaneously existing multiverses that represent an infinite amount of instances and all laws of physics. They can also be regarded as paraversal, as they exist in infinite parallels to the 11-dimension space-time continuum, with infinite instances of pasts and futures. As humans become literal gods of the megaverses, they cannot be stopped unless a civilization at or beyond K7 engage in combat.
Okay.
Sounds like a fun universe.
As soon as we get past 4 on these approximations,
Yeah.
we're into like multiverse theory and stuff. And
Yeah.
for some theories, multiverse might be necessary. I'm just show
You're not
show
there
me
yet?
one.
You're not
Just show me one or a hint of one or something.
So you're
past
like steady state. So your B theory of time
B theory is fine. Even though experientially we're in A theory, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
do you like the idea of a toroidal universe?
If the fabric of space is toroidal in shape, I don't like that for one reason and one reason alone. In order to cause something to be a toroid, you're probably talking about an energy transfer. Now I have to ask from where to where.
Well, universe to universe.
Obviously. So
Why
now,
not?
why are those
why
universes larger, and why are they just in a chain of multiverses? And then I have to ask the question, well, where's the energy going to? Because it can't be going to just another universe. It has to be going something bigger and more powerful than
what we were talking about with the universe and the filaments and the electricity flowing along it. Why can that not? And that's at a huge scale, right?
Yes, it is.
Nothing like we've imagined. Why could that not happen between the universes? Why could they not?
It could if there were universes, but
big cosmic web.
That's entirely possible. I'm not saying it's logically impossible. I'm saying give me some kind of clue that that's the case. I mean, it's a lot of fun to play around with those ideas. You know,
I mean, if multi-universes exist, they're going to exist like our universe, and they're going to collect. I imagine the same way, and I'm just thinking why I think that, and I don't really have a good reason, other than it's cool, and it's better than they're just floating around randomly. And I like the idea of it sort of tessellating.
What's tessellating
No,
mean?
that's not the right one. Tessellating is when the pattern reverses but fits and repeats.
Okay.
So an up one and a down one, and an up one and a down one. That's tessellating. I mean, when you zoom in and it's the same as when you zoom out. It doesn't matter what level you stop at, they look the same.
You just showed us a little piece on that not so long ago, and I forget what that word right there is. Sorry. I was watching Sean Carroll because someone said, "Oh, this guy is brilliant. Check him out." And I got about 2 minutes into the talk, and he was proposing a universe that pumps out universes, right? And that was his explanation for multiverse. And I could only watch about 2 minutes of it before my brain went, well, where did that come from? It's just kicking the can down the street. It doesn't answer a question, and it doesn't propose something that's necessary. Unless you've already assumed multiverse, in which case, well, you've already assumed your consequence. Look, give me evidence to something.
The challenge with anything beyond the universe is that you can never, you actually can never in this lifetime come up with anything observable, because without question, it's impossible to observe something that's already the light has already traveled beyond. We're only seeing the past. You don't know what's out there. Right. So these are all theories. These are in the end, it just boils down to belief. What do you believe in? Is there a multiverse beyond the universe, or is there a void?
But Faisal, I am okay with something being inductively necessary. I'm fine with that.
I agree, but it boils down to belief, right? You either believe that one is more likely. You believe one is more likely than the other. You don't have any observable proof, because you cannot have any observable proof in this matter.
Because if we used our physics to build a machine that could look that far, it wouldn't see things that it wasn't tuned to see.
It can never see things because the light would never reach us.
Oh, even if that weren't a problem, even if it was producing light that could reach us, you still couldn't see it because it wouldn't be the same kind of light.
It wouldn't be, and you don't even know what corrections to make to get to the right wavelength or whatever it is. Plus, even the idea of you traveling at the speed of light to achieve, to be able to get somewhere to observe something beyond it, even that is not possible, because once you reach the speed of light, you're practically energy.
I've heard that.
Fractals, Richard. Sorry.
I don't know what to think of that. Go ahead. What do you mean by fractals?
That's when, so there's 4 names that kind of explain it a bit better, which is infinite intricacy, zoom symmetry, complexity from symmetry, and fractional dimensions, which zoom symmetry is kind of a close description. So you have this intricate pattern, right? And when you zoom into a part of the pattern, you see that entire pattern again.
Right.
and then you zoom into the same part and you see the same pattern again.
What,
And it just
what was that guy with the mathematical elimination and inclusion process where only small numbers would remain, and it created this? What's that guy's name?
not Fibonacci.
No. Valley of the Elephants, for instance, isn't it? There, that guy.
Which guy?
Mandelbrot sets. Yeah. The Mandelbrot set.
Oh,
That's the name of that.
let's look.
So when you get all the way down to that point, you see another Mandelbrot set, and et cetera, and it never stops.
This isn't a great example. Oh,
No,
yeah,
it's
it
not.
kind of is. Because we keep zooming out, but it changes.
I don't know what that is.
Hang on, I think we're about to.
I think that's something somebody did for fun.
Oh, okay, the hardest trick. Oh, there, is that the original one? There it is. No. You're right.
Atheists don't watch this. Well, that's not clickbaity, is it? The thing is, that's not clickbaity for an atheist. That would be clickbaity for a believer of some kind.
Yeah. That just makes me go, oh.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe this one's it's an hour long. Trip to Infinity. Let's see how this looks.
So 428, is this a concept or is this more what we find in reality, an observable fact?
We do find examples of it in nature, not to like this level of, or to any infinite levels or anything stupid like that. But
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you go, Richard. You probably.
Faisal, are you asking what a Mandelbrot set is?
Yeah, no, I'm asking if this, because this is computer generated, right? What I'm trying to understand is if there are examples of this in reality,
where things seem to go infinitely downward, that you can keep going and repeating in physical reality.
Yes. So I'm not talking
They
about
call this an example.
The golden mean or the Fibonacci sequence, right? That I sort of understand. This is but I'm talking about more like what we were seeing.
So lightning is a good example. As you can see, hang on, I'm on the wrong screen. So they didn't really zoom in. So, oops, too far. Let me go back to the lightning. Yeah. So if you pick any branch, right, of this,
that's not lightning.
Zoom in. Yeah, I know, that's rivers. but similar thing. You can
Yeah.
zoom into a branch and it will look the same as it does zoomed out. And then you can zoom in again and it looks the same. You know, it might only be at 2 or 3 levels, but then you have fruit, for example, where that was, where, you know, you have quite a few levels. Where if you break one of those nugget-looking things off, it looks the same as the big version.
Right.
Does that make sense, Faisal? I'm butchering the explanation, but
Okay.
so it's like the micro mimicking the macro. Just yeah, I always thought that when I was a kid, that the little section is like a little version of the big leaf.
It's an odd thing that you should notice that as a child. Of course, this only goes down to the cellular level and then it stops. Like the cells don't look like leaves.
Yeah. But then we can say, you know, that atoms mimic the solar system, which mimics galaxies, and but I think that the argument's getting a bit loose when you get to that point.
Yeah, I think so.
I think the Fibonacci is kind of linked to the idea of fractals, though, isn't it?
I think there can be fractals outside of the Fibonacci sequence, but certainly you can use it to measure fractals.
Yeah.
It's crystals or the vein.
All insects are bugs, but not all bugs are insects, you know?
Yeah.
Or repeating geometrical features, but advanced several areas of mathematics, science, and technology. Many scientists continued to investigate the mathematics of recursion and self-similarity, but the study of fractals was reinvigorated with the advent of computing in the late 1900s. In the late 1970s, Polish-French mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot began studying fractals, specifically the Julia sets created by French mathematician Gaston Julia 6 decades prior. At the time, Mandelbrot was among the research staff at IBM and used the computers available to him to plot the Julia sets, specifically highlighting the points in the set that did not go to infinity but stayed between certain bounds, now known as the Mandelbrot set. Building on the work of George Cantor, Gaston Julia, Felix Hausdorff, and Louis Fry Richardson, Benoit Mandelbrot wrote many papers and books on the new field of study, fractals, a name he derived from the Latin word for fragmented. Mandelbrot demonstrated the application of fractals to natural phenomena such as coastlines, as well as unnatural phenomena such as the stock market. In addition to applications in mathematics, fractals have been used to model or design novel systems in fields such as medicine, computer and electrical engineering, biology, chemistry, environmental science, cosmology, and many more. Unlike the familiar 1, 2, and 3-dimensional figures, fractals do not have integer topological dimensions, and instead can have non-integer or Hausdorff dimensions, which allow for closer approximation of natural features. The simplicity and high surface area of fractals make them ideal models for simplifying and improving existing or theoretical designs. Fractals have found ingenious applications in biology and medicine due to the multitude of natural systems that follow recursive patterns in
That's like, didn't you notice that as a kid? how I think because I used to draw trees, right? And
Okay.
I noticed that I just would get smaller and smaller trees. I would draw smaller and smaller trees to draw the trunk becoming a branch, becoming a twig, becoming a smaller twig. You know, just pick a branch.
In
And
a
it has
word, Sammy,
branches coming off it, and then pick one of those things coming off the branch, and it looks the same as the branch.
in a word, did I notice that as a child? No.
Yeah.
No. I had
Really?
no such observation at all. Nothing like that.
Did anyone else notice that stuff as a kid?
I noticed a lot of symmetry in nature, like when you look at the way a plant grows on a stalk, sometimes the way that the leaves or the stems are distributed. When you cut fruit and look at it, there's a pattern. I noticed a lot of patterns as a kid. I used to kind of zoom in on stuff and look at details, and yeah, I noticed a lot of symmetry and patterns and the way things were distributed,
That's
whether they were orderly
fascinating.
or chaotic, you know.
So I was kind of, my brain just honed in on fractals, but yours honed in on symmetry. Really fascinating. You gotta love the brain, don't you?
I think it's riveting. I'm
Yeah.
not sure why it works the way it does, though.
Yeah. Wonder if we'll ever know.
I think to come to a harmonized human race, we'll have to know.
I mean, if we intend on putting consciousnesses in new bodies, we're gonna have to know really well.
I would think so.
Imagine the stages between perfecting that and not being able to do it at all. There's going to be like periods where you just mess consciousnesses up. Has the sound gone odd?
No, I'm trying to figure out why I have Peter W on one screen, my monitor screen, and not in my operation screen, which means he's got to be blocked somewhere. But I don't remember blocking Peter W. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Oh, let you.
But go ahead with your video while I'm trying to figure that out.
In at least one respect. Some bacteria's growth has been well approximated by fractal models, and these models can also help predict the locations of bacterial colonies. The growth of blood vessels in the human body follows fractal division, a phenomenon that can be disturbed in cancerous tissue. Fractal analysis of blood vessel growth in tumor tissue can offer new insights into cancer. The organization of neurons follows fractal patterns, a feature that may help understand how the human brain functions. Fractal distributions have been used to determine the distribution.
Neurons.
See, this is, you want to, okay, I can't show this, but I have an intuitive response to having been shown these kinds of things a couple years back. My intuitive response is it looks like energy transfer all the way down. Every formation of everything.
Yeah, I get you. Does like lightning.
You want to see lightning again? Go look at the Grand Canyon. You want to see it again? Go look at Valles Marineris on Mars. You want to see it again? Go look at roots of a tree. Go look at blood vessels, neural connections. It all looks like lightning. Google Earth mountain range. Go ahead.
What are you saying, Richard?
It all looks like it
I
just
know
it just
what-
looks like energy, just again and again and again, and nothing else.
It really
Pretty
does.
wild.
But is that what we just like to call the path of least resistance? Perhaps
Okay.
results in lightning.
Yeah, but why
looking-
is it that it should be true amongst cells and other solids like, I don't know, soil? That it should follow that the path of least resistance or most conductance is in a lightning-like pattern in the soil.
But
Why
I
would that
think
be
that's
there?
the link to the, like, not necessarily the Fibonacci sequence, but you know, the most efficient way is to take a section and then halve it and halve it again and halve it again, you know, and you're gonna wind up with lightning looking
See, but it's
features.
not halves, is it?
Well, not necessarily, but
Okay.
you know, it could be 4 times along the limb, and then each one of the times along the limb has another 4 along it.
Okay, I see what's happened. My StreamYard monitoring of the comments has stopped refreshing. That's what happened. Don't know why. Anyway, doesn't matter. I don't care
Plants
about
in
it.
managed forests, analyze the distributions of alveoli and lungs, and even research the genetic systems of cells. Fractal models have been successfully applied to physical processes such as turbulent flow and aggregation of molecules due to the
Look at
similarity of the
that.
physical laws that govern how such things occur. Fluid dynamics, as chaotic and potentially recursive phenomena, has been reproduced.
Are you fucking kidding me?
What's that look like to you?
Well, it's fucking fractals. But
Yeah, back it up a
it's
little bit. Play that again.
energy.
Looks like little I don't know,
Hurricanes?
atmospheric cloud swirls or even shell spirals. I mean, it looks like a lot of different stuff in these.
Yeah.
Little mini not tornadoes, but hurricanes, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Hurricanes,
very
that's
much
what I
does
thought.
look like hurricanes.
Fractal models have been successfully applied to physical processes such as turbulent flow and aggregation of molecules due to the similarity of the physical laws that govern how such things occur. Fluid dynamics, as chaotic and potentially recursive phenomena, has been reproduced numerically by fractal approximations, which has helped model such things as fluid flow around airplanes and ships, the kinetics of mixing in industrial processes, and many other engineering problems. Some porous structures are fractal to a degree, and fractal models have been used to model porous media for petroleum engineering. The randomness seen in fractals can be similar to the Brownian motion of molecules in liquid or gas, and semi-fractal models have been used for approximation of diffusion, aggregation, and electrodeposition of molecules in materials engineering. Due to the high surface area to volume ratio of fractal patterns, designs that incorporate fractals have been implemented to minimize the mass or size of applications that require high surface areas, such as antenna or cooling units. This approach has shown great promise, achieving equal or higher specifications with significantly less material used. Using the principles of self-similarity at any scale, fractal patterns have been used in a new method of image compression, which offers clear resolution at any scale. The natural world has an abundance of chaotic processes that shape the world we live in, and these processes often create the self-similar things we see around us. Learning from these natural fractals has given us the ability to advance our knowledge of the physical world and to apply this knowledge to novel creations. In the future, the study of fractals will lead to greater inventions and may help answer our lingering questions about the universe. Thank you for watching, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, check out more videos on the channel for other interesting topics, or subscribe to the channel for more educational documentaries.
Does anyone see those patterns and go, that doesn't look attractive to me, that doesn't look pleasant?
No. You'd have
Which
to be
one?
insane.
Any of them, or with any?
Yeah, any of those Mandelbrot set ones.
I mean, to me they're attractive, but I used to kind of, not, I don't know if it was frustration or not, but like sometimes when they would zoom, you know, because I've watched a lot of fractal zoom stuff, and I mean, I guess it's there's always some desire to see it resolve to, I don't know, like to, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. There's like something that I keep wanting to see and keep looking for.
Oh,
and it seems like
absolutely.
you know what I'm talking about? It's like really hard to describe.
Your brain needs it to complete the set.
Yes, yes.
Just
and when it just keeps on zooming and it doesn't quite like complete or resolve like 100% of itself, like it just keeps continuing. It's like there's no end. And you know, your brain likes endings. You know, it likes a container for things.
Yeah. This might be one.
But
Faisal, check.
I like it.
Sorry. Faisal, check private chat, please.
There we go.
Yeah.
Richard.
Okay. What if because the way that energy guides the formation of my hands, the formation of my brain, formation of everything I see around, and the closer it stays to a Fibonacci sequence, the more attractive I find it, because I couldn't help it in the first place.
Like you couldn't help but be attracted to it?
Right, because it just agrees with the way that we're formed because of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie zoomed in. She's getting serious.
And then I have to say something like, is aesthetics as a philosophy any kind of preference at all? Or does that just mean my brain formed a certain way and I am determined to like that?
Don't you think
like what kind of aesthetic
has a cultural component as well?
Keep talking. I need to bring up your volume. Just keep talking. You don't have to do anything.
Don't you think aesthetics has a certain cultural component as well?
Do I think aesthetics has a cultural component as well? Maybe, I don't know. Do you think that's like a subcategory, or do you think it's a major category? What do you think?
Oh, you know, I think that Egyptian art had a certain aesthetic. I don't think they were incapable of producing the more photorealistic stuff that the Greeks were into at the time. It was just their aesthetic was somewhat different. They were both humans of the Bronze Age, but you know, they just had a different approach to art.
Well, when you say that, I'm going to have to admit there must be those kinds of influences, right? Or else it would be more universal.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain commonalities. Obviously, there's commonality in representation, but it's not universally done the same way. I mean, one's appreciation for a piece of artwork carries an awful lot of cultural baggage. This is beautiful. I mean, in music, for example, are the 12-tone scale of the well-tempered clavier is hugely limiting to an Indian musician, you know, with quarter tones and everything else in between, you know.
I wonder.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say I don't know what a clavier is.
It's a piano. The well-tempered clavier is a stringed instrument. It's a famous collection written by Bach. The well-tempered clavier.
Sammy, save me.
Space is one of your frustrations. Oops. Where's the talking in that? Oh, because it's not the right one. Here we go. Part of my frustration is it's like you're heading for the center of the pattern, but you never hit the center. You always hit off to the side and keep going.
Yes, but then
Yeah,
the little
like,
side tendril that you like zoom in on ends up having
a center,
which of
but
course
you don't get there.
don't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of like the universe. There is no center. Everywhere is the center.
And you know, you can zoom and zoom and zoom and never reach like the actual end or center. It just keeps going, which, you know, I think that's unsettling in a way, but it's also there's a strange comfort in it too. The idea of it being endless.
Yeah, definitely good for
Mandelbrot
trips or mushroom.
Mandelbrot sets are neat.
Or disturbing.
Yeah.
I used to have a VHS videotape of like an hour of just Mandelbrot zooms, like way back when they first kind of hit the scene. And man, I used to watch that a lot. Before computers, before the internet, you know.
An hour of that shit. That's gonna hypnotize you to some degree.
And it wasn't even that great of a resolution, you know. It was like recorded from a computer screen, you know, back in the day before there was like, you know, a lot of, you know, really fine, good quality resolution that to be had. So it was like pretty pixelated and everything, but I didn't care. I still wanted it.
Yeah. So I've seen old videos of the concept, like someone say holding a picture of themselves, but that picture is of them holding the picture of themselves, which in that picture is a picture of them holding them, and so on. And the camera keeps zooming in and in. Seen like music video clips do that.
I think
sort
to
of
do
thing.
that, you have to take like 2 pictures and then repeat the process. I think is how that's done. It would be so hard to get.
Take a picture of someone just holding a blank square that you then superimpose the picture of them holding it onto that original picture with the blank square, and then repeat the process.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Just to get one of them right, you know, and centered and square to the original picture would be so hard to do.
May I post a question to the panel?
You mean another one?
Yes, another one.
You already
Me and my questions. Okay, so here's a hypothetical. What if a human came back from the future and explained to us that we will never be able to travel to another star if we keep on the current path that we do? Now, let's say that, as in, we'll never develop the technology to go that far, right? If we stay on the current path as we understand it, and let's say that's been like revealed to just all who's in this, who's listening in, and who's in this room.
I like this already.
I have one clarifying question.
Right? Okay.
So, what's the question in a nutshell? So I remember mine.
well, I didn't really. I was giving context.
Oh, sorry. Go on then.
Yeah. So
We've
so
jumped
so
again.
so someone from the future appears before us and says, and he meets whatever requirements you need to you ask of him to demonstrate that he is from the future, right? And he explains to you that um, at the current pace that humanity is going, the current societal setups, um, at that pace, we will never leave the Earth and go to another star with the current systems that we use. Would you guys become an advocate for a change of the system, or one where we'll solely focus on where technology and science and all of that stuff would be solely focused on development and trying to leave the Earth? Because the consequences is that we'll eventually just die on the Earth. Or would you guys just keep it to yourself?
Well, assuming you're hypothetical, if he came from the future, he's obviously got technology that we don't possess. So I'd be curious as to what is wrong with our current understanding of physics that led that technology to be available to him.
That would be a good question. But you notice I didn't say it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with solving a physics problem, right? He just
To me,
stated
everything's
that
a physics problem.
well, stuff like money and cultures and war and stuff like that are
Okay.
you know
I actually have a way of looking
In other
at it.
words, you people are too stupid you bickering amongst yourselves too much to even consider being cooperative enough to get to another world.
basically yeah.
It's gonna
That's a very,
take a world to do it. Yeah, I'd be down with that. It's more obviously more than physics. It's physics and physics and a culture uh, where minds are bent towards really understanding the universe and really understanding it deeply.
so would you so
So yeah,
would you
I'd be all for it.
but would you go out and share that information and whatever like small pieces of evidence he might have given you that you actually had a conversation with him to convince other people that this is going to be the potential outcome basically? Because if he's coming back here to tell us that info, right, it's assuming that we have the capacity to change that future, right? So
Sounds like a Star Trek original series episode.
hey, come on, man. I love. There was some
No,
influence from
it
that.
literally does. It's remember the Helen, whatever the hell her name was, McCoy saves her life,
Yeah,
and
there's influence
it
from
was
that.
crucial to the timeline that she die.
Yep. So I don't know. Anyone else want to take a stab at it?
Yeah, I have another way of looking at it. So
Sure.
if you think about it, the the way I see it, the technology to go back in time is probably much more advanced than the technology to travel between stars. Right. So the very fact that that individual is coming back from the future sort of is paradoxical to what he's saying.
Well, it's
And
only
that's
it,
my view. I mean, that's how
so
I would see
so
it.
you so
What's the
basically you
paradox?
wouldn't you so there's a few issues there, right?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
you're making an assumption that just because you know we ended up learning how to time travel, that means that we'll be able to travel to other stars, right? We don't know that those two things are are different, right? So
Definitely. And
so
but
and
there's a
assuming
reason, Batman,
hold on
for this.
hold on
Yeah.
assuming, right, it's clear that humans aren't able at that particular time, not able to travel to another star, and clearly there are consequences to that, right? Now, if they had the capacity, right, they would travel to another star, but clearly that's not the case. So hence the hypothetical.
You
Okay.
didn't say that. Could have come from the future, a future where humans were capable of traveling to other stars. But if they're not, then I'm not sure it really makes that big a difference to my original answer. But anyway, somebody else go.
Would you go out and tell the world? Would you advocate for us to um, focus focus most of our technological advances towards basically leaving the planet? Like, would you advocate something for that? Would you advocate for you know making that like a universal goal for humans, which would require some kind of peace and or whatever? Like, or would you just do nothing?
No, I think the goal to be able to have planetary travel, it's beyond question. For me, I think human beings should have that as a goal, right? But again, it comes down to priorities. I mean, the way I see it, we have much bigger and more pressing issues to deal with right now than to think about other planets or stars, right? Like poverty is still a bigger issue that we need to address than traveling to Mars or traveling to the moon, right? Um, the idea of um, uh, human strife and how to address those type of issues, right? To come up with a much better civilization. That to me is a bigger issue at this point than to just say uh, we need a different planet. I mean, fix this planet, then think about the others.
So you wouldn't do anything basically. You would just like keep it to yourself, and we'll just continue on the path
No,
that
from
that whatever that future is left
the
with.
way I see it is that regardless of what that individual has told me, right? That is a goal for humanity as a whole. I don't think I need to do anything because first of all, like the idea that if that person did come from the future, right? They've already changed the past. So whatever information they're giving you is irrelevant.
Okay, that's your view. Um, um, there's a there's a whole slew of things that could be addressed, but I don't know if anyone else wants to comment. You're muted, Stephanie. You're muted.
Yeah, I agree with Faisal that um, there are urgent things in our present that need fixing, and I think the two issues are intertwined. I don't think that humanity gets to the stars without solving an awful lot of problems here. I mean, it's the Fermi paradox. Uh, we're altogether too capable of destroying ourselves with the technology that we have, or destroying the planet with the technology that we have, or the lack of technology, or the misuse of technology that we have currently. Uh, and we need to fix those problems in order to have the capability of reaching the stars and doing so in a way that doesn't leave people behind.
Okay, fair enough. I think addressing all of the other issues would most likely be um, will most likely be necessary. So one of the main reasons why I asked the hypothetical question is that probably a couple weeks ago, I mentioned something where I said I think eventually us humans are going to we're going to hit a technological ceiling, and the main reason for that is that technology and development is solely based on monetary gain. And so
That's
what will
right.
happen is that instead of working in unison to create new technology, we're working against each other to create new technology. And I think as a result, we're going to reach a certain point where we'll develop tech to a certain point where we're just really comfortable, and the corporation or people who own that said technology, right, will just basically milk it as like as much as possible. So as a result, right, we'll most likely um, just end up destroying ourselves as a result.
Batman, don't you think that technology that is just created for the sake of technology or the advancement isn't necessarily sustainable, and in that sense, it becomes meaningless at a certain point? Because I mean, if you're, let's say, if you build a car which no one can afford, what's the point of that technology at the end, right?
Well, that's the
It needs to have some use to be meaningful for our existence. Otherwise, it's
well. I think you're misunderstanding the point that I'm trying to
okay.
make. Right, almost every single piece of technology that we have today is developed mainly for monetary gain.
So you're
And
basically saying greed per se, not essentially just monetary gain.
I mean, you can use greed. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's greed. It's not greed for everyone.
Hmm.
Um, but money is essential to our survival, right? And
Yeah.
so, and so, it's essential for our societies to operate. So the idea is that, and I can see um, certain industries in tech, for example, where they somewhat hit um, kind of a
Peak.
wall, so to
Okay.
speak, right? Like design
The
wise and
ceiling.
innovation wise. And they're only able to do that because they've kind of monopolized the industry, right? So, kind of using that as an example, I think eventually we're going to get to that point, globally speaking, right? And once we get to that point, right, I think it's going to be more so. I think another war or wars of resources will start again. That's what I think.
I'd like
So
to
to
take this moment to say deeply, I appreciate all of you adding to my experience and being part of my life. And that really means a lot to me. And there's a set of people, a kind of person I want to be on this channel talking, and you guys fit that. Not that I demand you think a certain way or be a certain way, but the conversations you guys have and lead me into, I just want to say thanks. I don't know how to say it well, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hey,
So
thanks for having us here, Richard. I mean, it's fun.
It's an honor, truly.
I'm only here to look at the beard.
That's
Using my brain is the
that's okay. I can fix that. Just kidding.
uh,
Yeah, Batman, finish your thought. You were saying something.
yeah. So now going back to the guy from the future,
Yeah.
right? So what I'm illustrating is that we've hit in the future, right? Humanity has hit a technological ceiling in regards to long, long distance space travel, right? As in, it hasn't worked out, and they've made an assessment that the current path in which how technology is being developed is not the way how we should change that,
So
right?
basically, in
So,
one way, we've exhausted the resources that we need, and we should have been more efficient in
well, not
building
just the
our.
resources, but the competitive nature in technological development.
Yeah, but Batman, I wouldn't say that the economics of it is the reason why we reached that. I think there's a difference between having a monopoly or something similar being set up, and that being an inefficient way to do things, and resulting in sort of um, a plateau in our technological advances, versus the idea that money itself is, or the economics of it itself is the cause of technological
Stagnation.
stagnation. Yeah, that's the word, right? Because in one way, the fact that something has to be economically viable, that it can be produced, sustainably produced, is the very reason why there's economic development. Because let's say somebody comes out with a new computer that runs really fast, right? But they cannot build it economically, then it's probably not worthwhile for anyone to invest in, and nobody can actually invest in that, right?
So,
It's sort of
so,
something that keeps you grounded in another sense.
so, do you think, like, okay, so take for example, right? There was a point in the light bulb industry where the one of the three main companies that were basically competing against each
Hmm.
other,
Hmm.
creating light bulbs. They essentially created light bulbs that won't go out. And there was an issue because the way how they looked at it was like, well, we've kind of hit the ceiling and we'll most likely go broke if we sell these light bulbs to people. And so what all three of them did was that they decided to come together to not compete. And it's there's this thing that they created. It's called forced obsolescence,
Yeah,
where they deliberately make things that will break over a certain amount of time, so you will keep coming back to purchase new ones, right? And so what caused them to do that was the fear of them not being able to innovate and monetize through that innovation, right? So that was their mindset. Clearly, that's not the case now, right? Like we've find ways to use light bulbs and that we couldn't even imagine back then, right? But they can, and this is still something that's being used currently. Most people don't notice it, right? But it's definitely something that companies still do. Once they want to, you know, once they're in a comfortable space. So that's one of the issues um, that I can see happening in the future, where we'll develop little by little certain pieces of technology to where we're just really comfortable with it, and a company can just be like, okay, people need this piece of tech, so they'll always buy it, right? So we won't need to innovate anymore. We'll just keep cashing in. Like, why would you invest in research and development and risk that money if you don't need to, and if the people aren't, begging for it, right? So with that mindset, right? I think I think the idea of tying technological development um, with monetary gain will probably lead to a future that's going to suck for a lot of humans.
Yeah, but
Okay.
Batman, if you take the example of the light bulbs, right? The the very greed of those people caused technological advancement, right? Because if they sat back and said, okay, we've made the perfect light bulb, it doesn't go out. And that's how old light bulbs work. They hardly ever went out, right? Uh, they would not have innovated any new form of light bulbs or anything new. And what we have now, LEDs and all of that, right? So I think it's not necessarily, the two things are probably not linked the way you're suggesting. Maybe there's something we're missing here.
Well, if you can demonstrate to me any new piece of tech that was made not not for monetary gain, then I'm game. Now there are like, take for example, I think it's just real quick, um the was it polio, the 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 vaccine for polio, or one of those diseases,
Yeah,
when
it's
a
polio.
specific,
That
yeah, the
that
guy
was
could have
almost
patented it
yeah.
and he didn't.
No, sorry, that's penicillin.
Okay.
That's penicillin.
Jonas Salk, who did the original polio vaccine, made it free. Also, the guy who invented insulin made it free.
Yep. Now there are those instances that exist, and I will obviously I'm acknowledging it, right? But I think overall that is not the case. Like 99.99999.8% of the time, it's not the case. So I think they are absolutely tied. Um, but go ahead, Richard.
I think you're right, but I think you're only right when it comes to products developed which can be downsized and made inexpensive enough that they can be a consumer product, but not everything is like that. For instance, I'm aware of what's called now Blue Cloud, which is an international resource for trading information amongst people that have a professional number, like college professors, doctors, nurses, social workers, these kinds of people have these numbers that are assigned to them. And they alone are free to use this as a resource. But it was originally built to judge and give an answer for the supervolcano Yellowstone. Now that was never meant to be marketed in any way, and who the hell would buy it? It's just too damn much money. But the U.S. government thought, I want to ask this question. It's gonna require this to answer the question, so they built it.
Yeah, I mean,
The whole internet.
yeah, no,
In fact,
no. See, that's the thing, right? Like, I acknowledge that there are situations where in the past where pieces like even the technology, for example, that was used during the space race, right? A lot of it, the federal government actually like made public, and companies basically took them and just like ran with them,
sure.
right? And we've developed a lot of stuff. All of those companies mainly developed them to make money from them. That's
Sure.
exactly what they did, right? So I'm not saying those instances do not exist. What I'm saying is that for the most part, that is not the case, right? And
For the
so,
most part, you mean in importance, or do you mean in like sheer numbers of things?
um, I would say both. Oh shit! I got to blink.
I don't think so in importance. I think you've put too much value on things that are marketable. Okay, for instance, we're never going to have flying cars, even though flying cars are totally possible. I'm sorry, Stephanie. I know they promised you personally. They promised
Yeah,
me. They were liars.
they lied
It,
to you.
and there's a really good assholes. But there's a really good reason for that. People have a problem enough thinking two-dimensionally and staying safe. Never mind
Auguring
if
in's
you add
never
a
a good
third
thing.
dimension. No, very few people should be pilots. Very few. And that's why we make all these limitations, and we say, okay, you fly at this altitude. This other guy, he's on near the same path. He's going to fly at this different altitude. But imagine trying to scale out ground control to everyone everywhere. No, it would just be too much.
See, this is one of those moments where I wish Pixie, the Tesla advocate, would join the room. So one of the cool things that the reason why Tesla is as good as it is because it's taken small pieces of technologies throughout the auto industry that was being developed and being put in concept cars, for example, that the auto industry, makers never really use, right? And even if they did decide to use like some shitty cheap version that they turned into a gimmick, Tesla took those things, made them practical, and like give them actual use in a nice, clean, simple package, right? I'm not even talking about the battery technology. I'm talking about the safety features, the the sound, like, you see what I'm saying? The spaciousness, all of that stuff they've taken into consideration to make owning a Tesla freaking fun, right? And to be fair, right? Would they be considered luxury cars? Yes, right. But the cool thing is that there are luxury cars that exist that cost even more that don't have half the amount of comforts and tech a Tesla has,
Right.
right? So it's, to me, it's one of those situations where, okay, one man realizes that everyone is working to compete against each other, developing this technology and not really, using it, right? Because as far as they're concerned, we're making money off of what we have now. We're good, so there's no need to really rush developing this more, right? Or applying it in a more practical way. And he took all of
Sure.
those ideas, right, refined them, even simplified them to some extent, put them in a nice package, and that's why you have Tesla. And so, imagine taking that concept, right, where you have all of these companies, for example, that's working on space travel, right, that's trying to develop new technology. None of them are communicating. All of them are like hiding their research away from each other, all of that stuff, right?
Okay.
How soon do you think it'll be easier to travel to another star if we work apart versus if everyone who has, you know, knowledge of space travel, who's working on these different pieces of technology, come
Mm-hmm.
together as one think tank to travel to a different star? Obviously, it'll be sooner if everyone's working together. But the reason why
Okay.
we are,
Not necessarily. I would disagree with that in one way. I think the fact that there are multiple different teams working on it, it allows them to think independently, and individually they might be coming up with things or ideas which may be more beneficial than if you pooled everyone together. Because what happens when you pool a large group together, it's not that everybody's ideas are heard. What ends up happening is the politics between human beings, it suppresses certain ideas, only some of the ideas would actually be accepted and move forward. And I personally think that in that situation, it will be more likely that there will be less advancement than what we have with a sort of a competitive nature in this case.
A
Well,
little bit of housekeeping. I just wanted to say peace and respect to Metabun, and what's the bet? Go ahead. Sorry.
actually, I think that's not the case because, like, take for example, rocket technology. Like what the Russians did was that they took something that was very privatized at one point, right? And they've made it public and pulled all of these different scientists and developers and threw them in rooms, have them all pitch their different ideas and concepts, right? Have them all build their different types of rockets, see what worked, see what didn't, and they were eventually able to send the first satellite outside in space, right? And they're able to do that in a quick succession because they pooled all of the resources that were working separately together. And one could argue that the United States kind of did the same thing, right? All of these different scientists, the top of their field, right, were working separately on different projects, right? Getting paid, trying to make that money. But once you put them all, the best in a room, have them all present their ideas, experiment, see what works, see what doesn't, right? Guess what? You get to send people to the moon.
Okay, I want to know why Stephanie's laughing.
Oh boy.
I'm laughing a little bit because the nature of the space race was essentially military. The Sputnik was a demonstration that the Russians had the technology to build an intercontinental ballistic missile.
Yeah, it was an oh shit moment. I
was
know.
an oh shit moment. Yeah. And so it was a all hands on deck sort of thing to make sure that our rocket technology A caught up, and B, and the satellite stuff was, people obviously had the brilliant idea. Well, if you can have a little satellite going up, I was alive when Sputnik went into space, and you could tune in and hear the fucking thing on the radio.
That's
you
hilarious.
could literally hear this thing. It's like, oh my. And in the context of the Cold War, which was very terrifying, it was like hide under your desk and like kiss your ass goodbye sort of situation. It was like, oh my God, the Russians they can listen in and all this stuff. And so, within a few years, like Sputnik was what, 1957, 58, something like that. And within a few years, we had telecommunication satellites up there. It didn't take long. I remember Telstar. It's like, oh my God, we relied on communications between North America and Europe were all by undersea cable. And then there was Telstar. And we were sending telephone calls, bouncing off satellites into space, and coming back down, and all of that stuff. I mean, those were days of tremendous innovation. And spurred on by a rivalry, an international rivalry that at its heart had terror. Absolute fucking nuclear dread.
Can't imagine you guys during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
It was fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
I was 11 years old.
Yeah, but the greatest innovations do come about
fucking terrifying.
The greatest innovations in humanity do come about sort of when we're in a state of war, more or less.
And that is what your man from the future would come back to tell us was wrong.
Yeah.
You do not need to build your future on being afraid of each other and turning each other into enemies. and turning each other into deadly rivals and losing your humanity for the sake of progress. In fact, the answer is to build humanity, bind them together for the sake of progress. We need the things that bind us together as human beings are far, far greater than the things that tear us apart. We have children. We have mothers and fathers. We have neighbors.
Still, I think the only thing that would tip the scales, Stephanie, is a literal alien invasion.
I've been saying that for years.
Sure. But again, that's just, that's, to me, it's the old fear is the mind killer, the litany against fear from Doom.
I
Fear
see
is the
what you
mind
did
killer.
there.
It's sure, it's a kick in the ass, but do we really need to have that kick in the ass the entire time? Do we
I don't know. I
we
think
really need to have a hairy thunderer? Whether
I
it's
think it's
whether it's an alien, whether it's actual space aliens, or it's a alien that we've dreamed up in our own mind. Some sort of figure of dread.
Yeah,
that
like
must
a
be
war
obeyed.
god. Right. Like some
A
kind of war
figure of
god or
dread that
something
must
like
be
that.
obeyed, that
Yeah.
we create in order to make ourselves better as people. To me,
No,
that's
I
just
think
the wrong approach.
even a friendly alien invasion would
A
cause us
friendly one,
we'd still have the realization that we are a people.
Sure. Well, like, for example, when the Vulcans come and say, "Oh yeah, you guys are making it, but here's how you really do it right."
That'd be okay with me. Yeah.
That'd be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think those moments, I think the moments where humans really come together, where, it's not about the money, those are the moments when we engage in some insanely crazy innovation. And
Right.
doesn't normally happen just through war. There are other civilizations back in the day that created a lot of different types of, like, for example, aquifers and stuff like that, right? Those weren't necessarily made because of war. They were made because, there was a quality of life issues, right? Farming techniques and stuff like that, right? They were made for survival purposes and, and ways and means to maintain that society. But the
Well, I know
fact
of
is
something
that
that may force us into that kind of cooperation again is our production of greenhouse gases and what that must eventually do to the planet. I mean, eventually there's got to be a tipping point where it is unrecoverable and it's going to kill us off. And if we don't do something about it before that, well, it'll kill us off.
And
Yep,
the
but
problem is
we're on
trying to
that path.
convince people that we're at that tipping point. The problem is trying to convince people that it's real, that there's nobody coming to save us. There's no galactic army gonna come down and say, "Now look, you guys are really fucking up here. We're gonna straighten this out, and then you better fly right." And to me, these are the more critical issues for the future of humanity. And when there are belief systems that allow you to say, well, it doesn't matter because in the end we're all going to sit around and glorify God in the sky. And some people actually wish for the destruction of the world because that will be the moment, where we're all saved, or though the virtuous among us will be saved and the earth will burn. I mean, that to me is just it's just the wrong set of beliefs to carry humanity into the future.
Kind of like what Bob Marley said. If you know what life is worth, you'll look for yours on Earth, right? And I think a lot of people do two things. They're living their lives with their heads stuck in the heavens, or they're living their lives with their faces literally just smothered in money, cash. And so when you do that, typically the other people and even ideas and other concepts will not matter to you, right? Because that is your life's wish, that is your life's purpose. Like all other things are secondary, right? And a lot of people will not admit it, but you can definitely see it.
Well, you could take the biblical verse that says you can't worship both God and mammon. If you wanted to reinterpret it for the modern age, you can't worship that the almighty dollar and seek to save the planet at the same time. I mean, what does it profit you to lose the planet for the sake of a quick buck? You know, it's just that's no good either.
It's crazy because I remember coming across this paper and they were saying that if we've set up a certain amount of solar panels than the Sahara Desert and a few other places on the planet, right? You know, just miles and miles of that, we would be able to power the whole planet. We have water delivery systems and water filtration systems that are extremely efficient to the point where if we really wanted to, we could deliver water to almost every single place on the planet. Like oil, for example, like they have delivery methods of oil up in the Arctic, right? To where oil and gas where it won't freeze, right? Like we can deliver those things. We can do these things. It's just that, well, we don't want to because there's money tied to it. There's a sense of nationality that's tied to it, right? Like those are the things that separate it. So a lot of the problems that we currently have, we can solve them on a global level. We just choose not to.
So, Batman, here's the question. The way I see it, money is the simplest way I can think of money is that it's a measure of value, and it's a much more convenient measure of value than some of the other items because uh, it can be used universally, so to speaking. So multiple different things can sort of be compared with each other just on the basis that you can actually put a monetary value against that, right? So in that sense, uh, do you think that if you take that away, that a almost universal measure away from what needs to be done, do you think that we will be able to progress if we don't know what we're doing or how much uh, it would entail in getting to the endpoint?
I mean, yes, it just depends on what our goals are as a species, really. You can take away money. We don't need money in order to exist as as a species or like societies,
Yeah, but
right?
it's what makes
Like,
sense. Right?
well,
It's what
right.
allows to make sense of what we do and how we see the world, right?
Well, that's no, maybe for you, that's not me.
Okay, then what does?
For me, it's other humans. Money is just another tool of exchange. Money doesn't de- money doesn't determine value. A matter of fact, the value
No,
of
no, no.
money is it's not even like one consistent thing. It literally depends on a host of things, right?
And Batman,
And so
I
its
don't think.
usage, just hold on
Yeah.
just real quick. And so its usage and how valuable it is literally dependent on where you live, how well your country does, what is backing it, how much is in circulation, how much people are hoarding it, how much people actually have, stuff to provide to spend it on. There are so many things associated it with money itself that, to me, right, it is the only thing that the human race that basically created that is keeping us back right now.
So, Batman, what I said was money is a measure of value, not necessarily it is value or it has in its own value per se, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that if you want to know whether you should go on a trip or whether you should buy a car, right? They're two completely different things, but the one way you can actually make sense of it is how much value you're going to lose of what you have, how much money you have to pay for the trip versus how much money you have to pay to get the car, right? That's one way of measuring that. So it gives you um, a way to make sense of your decisions that you're making. In absence of money, how are you going to make those type of decisions uh, where you have to analyze two different options?
I mean, if it's a situation where going on a trip and getting a car would not require money, I wouldn't choose between the two. I would just get the car and go on the trip.
Okay, but that's you're sort of missing the forest for the trees here. What I'm trying to say is there are uh, two things which you're not able to compare, right? It's not easy to distinguish the outcomes of what is more beneficial in one or option A or option B, right? How would you determine between those two if you're not using money as a measure of uh, which one is more valuable to you?
You determine that based on usage, how good it does its job, how what is how efficient it does what it does. Does it make the person happy? Like, there's a bunch of different ways you can determine that. Like, take for example, right? uh, iPhones, and some of the Apple folks are gonna come at me, right? But come catch these hands. Technologically speaking, right? The iPhone is back of the line compared to a lot of modern other modern phones, right? In a lot of stuff. Maybe not when it comes to the camera, right? And a few things, but it's at the back of the line, right? Um, and so those devices inherently aren't they don't they're technically not as value because they don't offer as much value, technically speaking, like on paper, right? However, those devices are able to sell for high amounts, right? Because there is a brand associated with them, right? And people value that brand because that brand provides a certain sense of status by owning one of those devices, right? So to make a Samsung phone and an Apple phone, the cost to build one might literally be the same, but one phone is more valuable, and their Apple is able to charge more because they've sold people on the idea that their devices are worth more, regardless of whether or not they have, more or less features, right? So value is not necessarily solely based on, you know, the money itself, right? The value comes from what us humans, right, want from it and what we can get out of it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, like I said, money is one of the measures of value, right? One of the ways that you determine whether you go about uh, whether it makes more sense to buy a Samsung or you should go for the iPhone, right? Because without the idea or the concept of money, everybody will go for an iPhone, let's say, right? Because the Samsung is less expensive in the market, or that's why some people would buy a Samsung right now because they can't afford an iPhone. Or the but if that was not the case, everybody would be going for the iPhone. So in that sense, don't you think it's actually um, contrary to what you're trying to say? Because if everyone is on iPhone, there's no competition. Nobody will want anything other than iPhone.
No,
Then
I
there's
mean,
no technological advancement now. If you cannot, like, the way I see it, we need to sort of ground money into what the intent behind it is, and not the sort of the fuzzy sides of it where greed comes into play. Because I think what you're saying about money leading to greed and that causing a lot of problems, right? That is, I agree on that front, but I don't think that to sort of boil it down to the idea that money itself is the evil, that I don't think is a correct conclusion of
again,
that.
I
Yeah.
think you're misunderstanding the point that I'm making,
Yeah. Go
right?
ahead.
Money is a tool,
Yes.
right?
Agreed
It's
on
a
that.
tool
Yeah.
used for exchange. I don't think money is good or bad, right? It's just a tool.
Agreed.
Greed existed before money, right? So money doesn't necessarily um, how much money you have doesn't necessarily mean that it's an indicator as to how greedy you are, right? Now, with that point being made, um, we value stuff. We don't value money itself. We
Agreed.
value what money can get us, right? Now, imagine a world where you can get those things, right, without money. Would it mean that the things that we can get without money be less valuable? No, because we can value things based off of looks, based off of status, based off of utility, just based off of whether or not, your spouse likes it, right? Like that's how we value things. That's why a guy would spend how much of his savings to buy an engagement ring for his girlfriend to propose to her, even though it shouldn't really be needed, but that's why he does it. That ring has value to him as far as what it would allow him to convey to his partner,
Okay, so
right?
in your world where money is not being used as a measure of value, let's say
Watch Star
there,
Trek.
yeah, so uh, Star Trek is pretty utopian. We have to agree on that part, right? But
I wouldn't say so, but okay.
let's just say in your um, in the worldview that you've built, that money is sort of not being used as a measure of value, right? There is so essentially in that scenario, anyone can get anything regardless of what value you would put on it. Is that a correct idea? So everyone would have access to everything?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say uh, there's one ultimate car that has been made, right? Now, the question that I have here is that if there is this state of the art best in tech car now available, how would you determine now who would be able to get access to that car or be owner of that car in your
Make it
world?
based. You make it based off of demand because not everyone's going to want a car like that.
Yeah, so everybody wants that car because that's the best one now.
Well, then just make more.
Okay, so there are not enough, right? So
Well, it's
how do
not
you
an.
do? Because
I
that
mean, we'll just. You're saying I just said we'll just make more.
no, we will make more, but it's you and I are both aware that the supply is if something is really good, right, and it's really cheap, that nobody has to pay anything for it, everybody would want it. Let's say there are 10 billion people on this earth. Each and everyone wants that same car. Are you able to manufacture 10 billion of those cars immediately? If not, how are you going to satisfy those 10 billion? Because
I mean,
right now
that's
only
what we
one
would.
person can have it.
We have billions of cars already.
No, I'm
Okay,
talking about
so
the state of the art car, right? The one best car. So what I'm trying to say here is that,
hold on, hold on a second. What
yeah,
I think there's something fundamental you're missing here,
okay,
right? A part of maintaining value or bringing value to something is deliberate scarcity.
okay,
As in, if you like, McLaren will only make a set amount of McLaren because they understand that if you the more McLarens you make,
yeah,
right, the more will be out there, and so the value would go down, right? And so if you want a specific type of model to maintain more value or have more value, right, then you create scarcity. It's not that they can't make millions of, that model if they want, if they wanted to, they can absolutely do it, right? It's just that it just comes back down to what they want at the end of the day, and they value, um, you know, McLaren, the designers or whatever, right? They value the idea of keeping their car being considered rare and 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 as a result, extremely more valuable than other cars. So just because it's a super sports car or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's valuable per
yeah. But
se. It's the
Batman,
scarcity part of it.
not all scarcity is artificial, right? Scarcity can be a naturally occurring thing completely, right? So what I'm trying to get to is that I understand what you're trying to say, but I think you're probably uh, where I see the distinction and where I want to make the distinction is that there's what you're saying that um, uh, where you're saying that it should be money which we should eliminate from the society. I feel that we're eliminating something which may actually have some intrinsic good in it, in the sense that it allows us to measure some and make decisions that can be very critical to us, right? And maybe what you're trying to eliminate is the greed part of, around it, right? Which causes a lot more issues within a
It's
society.
it's not greed, as I
Okay.
as I said. We the current societies that we have on this planet. It's set up in such a way to gain as much um, money to get as much of the things we want. It's not greed.
Yeah. So anyway, anyone else wants to pitch in, because I think we've
I got a jet pretty soon, but my only
yeah.
my only contribution is that I think money's a means of exchange. It's also a means of rationing productivity, and it's also a way of measuring where um, where a society wants to put its best efforts.
Yeah, so it's definitely, I think
So it's it's a complicated topic, and I don't know how to solve it, but I don't know how I don't know how you organize society without some sort of a measure uh, of value and stuff.
okay.
I mean, I think
And that's
traditionally, it's one of my pet peeves is uh, people working in the needle trades are always undervalued. The people that make your clothing don't get paid very well anywhere and never have. And there's a reason for that. If you ask me, it has to do with patriarchy. Um, so there's always going to be an exchange of goods and services is always going to have a value put on it, and the value of those goods is going to be determined by something. Whether if it's in barter, it's can I barter this shirt um, for an iPhone? Probably not, because the values aren't equivalent. So there's always going to be some sort of stuff, and and people do have a tendency to have um, to measure their success by the piles of gold that they have, and maybe it'll take a little bit of a switch in the way people think about this sort of thing uh, to make a real change. But money is basically just is a tool and a measure of value and a measure of exchange. Relative value, not absolute value, but relative value.
exactly. And
So I got to go.
All right.
Great talk. It's been a great conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming by, Stephanie.
All
All right,
ciao.
take care.
Take care. Richard, do you have anything to say on this topic?
Oh, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about.
Oh my God.
No, I've got nothing to add whatsoever.
Yeah.
Only that I've heard theory of money that went something like an estimate of perceived value of human energy, something like that. And maybe that's right. I don't know.
Yeah. So, Batman, the question sort of that it boils down to from my end is if you don't have money anymore, what is it that you're professing as an alternative?
I mean, the alternative is to have a society without money.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, so take for example,
yeah,
right? In it, if we, it largely comes back down to, as a species, um, changing what we find to be valuable and working towards those things, right? Like take for example, yes, I absolutely know that other animals are not like us, right? But I'm just using them as an example. Like take for example, ants. Ants have societies, right? And yes, largely a lot of that is grounded in their base instincts. But in order for them to operate and maintain that society, they have they all have a singular goal, which is to maintain um, the nest, right? Even though all of them have individual jobs, right, that they all perform, and so it would manifest something kind of like that, right? It just comes back down to what we as a species on a whole value, right? And whether or not we're going to work towards it. Right now, what we value as a species is stuff. And the the quickest way that we know how to get stuff is by accumulating um, as much of the medium as possible to get all of the stuff that we want. So again, it just comes back down to what we value. Like if a alien species came down and gave every single person on the planet a machine that could, create and just magically make whatever food and water or drink they want, right? Like obviously food industries would crash, right? And a lot of people would be upset, and chances are there's a lot of humans who do their best to murder those aliens who provided us that piece of technology, right? And the only people who would want to do that are the people who benefit the most from maintaining the current system.
Yeah. So um, again, like you've answered everything else, but you haven't given me the alternative that we would have. So what would it be that you would value? So like for me, for example, right, money, the only reason why it has value, it allows me to determine the time and my effort and what I'm putting into it, right? So if I want, um, let's put it this way, right? If you want a car, 26,000, let's say, dollars, right? You would think of it if you want to sort of, um, if you want to put, let's say you earn $100 an hour with whatever work you're doing, right? Then you're going to say that this is worth 260 hours of my time, right? In one way, that's one way of looking at it, right? But that's only possible because you have um, that thing, the car has a value because you can actually translate that value into the effort that you need to put in to get that. Without putting any effort in, right? How would society make sense of things? That's where I'm getting to. Because if everyone now has access to that car, because it doesn't need any exchange, right? Or if there is an exchange, then you need to explain to me what is being exchanged here. But if there is no exchange, then everybody should be able to get that car. But again, we come to the underlying issue that we don't have enough of those cars, right? And I'm not just talking just about the car. I'm talking about everything. So in this particular scenario, what are you basing us on? What are you grounding us on that makes sense of the trade, the economy, the society that we were going to be living in?
Well, well again, right? It'll come back down to what that society value. Like, take
Yeah,
for
but
example, right?
yeah,
Oh, let me give you an example, and because maybe the ant example is like too simple. So there are still primitive societies that exist still within our world, right? Human societies. Some of them you can find in the Amazon, for
yeah,
example, or in Africa. These people do not use money, right? And when it comes to a means of exchange, that largely boils down to um, um, service for service, or sometimes bartering. But the goal, the ultimate goal is for everyone to contribute to that society and in maintaining it, right? So their goal is to maintain their society and their lifestyle the way how um, um, they have always done, right? So they didn't adopt money; they just went about teaching various different skills, and they all use those skills that they learned to contribute and maintain their society. Like, I can understand that it's really hard. It's really, really hard to think about a world without money, right? Like, but money wasn't always a thing.
No,
right?
Batman, I
Like
can
it's
definitely
actually
think.
pretty new, right? So I'm just saying, like, I understand where you're coming from, right? But what I'm trying to express to you is that value is not inherently tied to money. It's inherently tied to stuff. And right now, with the current setup that we have, right, it makes it easier to to get stuff, right? So at the end of the day, right, it just depends on the society and what they value. If they don't value money, they're not going to use it. They're but they'll still exist as a society.
Yeah, so Batman, like when you when you give the example of that tribe in the Amazon, right? There's the way you described it. I think it's in one way it's a form of socialism, right? Where they are all working together towards a common goal. There must
That's
be
that's that's not socialism.
um.
Okay, I got pushback against both of you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, here's the pushback. Batman, too much Ian Rand. And in order for that kind of a system to work, you need a limitless supply,
Exactly.
which Faisal started to kind of touch on and didn't really drive it home, I think. So in order to be what you're talking about, you need a planet with no definitive outer no definitive volume. You need endless supply, and then you could totally have what you're talking about, a limitless, moneyless, based on preferences, um, not equal, but personally satisfying. And then Faisal, if it is true that the value of a thing is based in part or in whole on its scarcity, I can have this, but you can't. What is the value of anything in any higher Jenna?
What is the value of anything in any higher genre? So
Higher
the
than this,
interesting.
yeah.
So if it's okay, Batman, I would like to respond first, and then we'll move on. Or do you want to go ahead?
No, I wrote in the side chat. I'll go after
Yeah.
you.
Okay, that's fine. So the concept of Jannah is that it is specific to you. So what you like, Richard, is different from what I like. So it is unique for each and every one of us.
Okay.
So how can anything that is completely unique and it satisfies you completely, right? Right? It satisfies you. It's of worth to you. It's not of worth to me, per se.
So we're back to personal preference.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So Jannah is like we talked about it, right? That if God is all knowing, he knows exactly what you desire, what is pleasurable to you, and the ultimate pleasure to you is different from the ultimate pleasure to me or anyone else. So that's how we see Jannah. And he left.
I didn't leave, and I've got
Okay.
remotes on. I can always hear.
Okay. So does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Right. Okay.
So
Batman.
my turn, I guess.
Yes. Go ahead.
So there's a few issues with Richard's response, right? First of all, there's not an unlimited amount of people, therefore, there you shouldn't need to have an unlimited amount of anything. Also, currently, the way how our societies work is that scarcity um, is manufactured. Like, take for example, there are companies that destroy devices that they've made too much of, destroy food that they've made too much of, right? Destroy clothes that they've made too much of. And the reason why they do it and don't sell it at a cheaper price is because, well, they want to maintain the value, as in value is in the amount of money that's needed to purchase their good or product or service, right? And um, it would reduce how much people value their good um, overall as far as they're concerned. Because a Gucci shirt is a T-shirt. There are other T-shirts that are made of the same material that are probably even better, that sells way cheaper than a Gucci T-shirt. But the only reason why the Gucci T-shirt is costs more, right, is because people just value the brand more, and there is a scarcity that exists when it comes to that T-shirt. It doesn't mean that T-shirt inherently is more valuable than the other T-shirt that, for all we know, has made of better material, um, or the same type of material that could probably even last longer, right? That costs less. So it largely comes down to what we as humans value, and we'll do things based off of that. So I guess
Okay,
that's my response to it.
Batman, we all recognize that, right? That's not the issue that we're talking about. We're basically saying that in most cases, scarcity isn't artificially manufactured, right? Scarcity is a result of the reality that we live in. We don't have enough of everything that we want. Yes, maybe you can say, or you can argue that there's enough of everything that we need to survive, right? There's enough food for all humanity to survive, but there's never enough food to fill what everyone wants to eat, right? Let's
Well,
put it that way.
well, I
So,
think I think that presupposition is not justified. I'm sorry, I'm not going to grant that. You have to
so you're
demonstrate that to
saying
me.
there's enough.
I'm not saying currently there is enough. There's
No,
I
so
think you're
so he,
misunderstanding me.
no no
What
no
I'm
Batman.
saying is
Even
that if we like, Gucci can make more of those shirts if they want. If they decide that, hey, we're only going to make 10,000 of this shirt, right? And so we'll put it out there and see, put a dollar amount on it, right? And people will be like, oh, it's only gonna be 10,000 of these shirts. Well, you know, based on how much they value that shirt, right? They're gonna spend, right, based off of how much they value that shirt. This is how humans are. But it doesn't mean Gucci can't make 1 million or 10 million or 1 billion. But that's not an indicator.
yeah
So
no
again, I'm just saying, like,
but Batman, you're
having
actually again missing the underlying argument here.
no,
That
I get the underlying argument. This is why
which
I
is
use.
what? Can you steelman it for me? What we're trying to say?
So what you're trying to say, right,
Yeah.
is that is that your value and how much we value things, right, is based on the monetary value, right, is
No, no, no.
based on. So go ahead. You
We're,
were saying.
we're saying that we are never going to be in a position where there's too much supply and too little demand, right? It's always going to be the other way around. Otherwise, the whatever is there, it is pretty much meaningless and it's useless to us,
Well,
right? There's
no, because again, right, it's been demonstrated multiple times. There's literal physical evidence, right, that shows that a lot of manufacturers of, of goods, for example, right, destroy an immense amount of whatever they produce to make sure it never goes to the market. If they want to, they can sell it. But if
Agree.
they sell it, if they sell it, right, it's going to reduce the the dollar amount value for that item,
But Batman, that's the
right?
exception. That's not the rule,
That
right?
is the rule. That's
That's
what I'm
not the
trying to
rule. But
express to you. That is the
no, but
rule.
that actually assumes that every every product that is made has to be artificially the supply and demand is artificially or has to be artificially manipulated. Every supplier does that, right? And it just sort
I
of
mean,
assumes
I'm
a
being
bad faith.
hyperbolic. Obviously, that's not the case in every situation.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
So
I'm just saying with the. I'm just saying with the techniques, facilities, and resources that is available to us,
yeah.
right? If we want to, we could clothe every single person on the planet. We could feed every single person on the planet. We can provide shelter to every single person on the planet. We can provide travel for every single person on the planet. We can we can do these things, but we don't do those things because we do not find it to be valuable.
So so if
Like,
I want to put it
would
in
you
another
agree?
way,
Would you agree with that?
I can agree with a part of that, and let me explain how and what I mean there. So I can agree with the idea that the human needs and not the human wants, right? The human need to be fed, to be clothed, to be sheltered, right? Or to have transport, or some of these key pieces of key needs that human beings have, right? They can be, we can have, or we can make enough supply, right? Not necessarily the same level, but make enough of the supply that these needs are met, right? But when it comes to the wants, for example, if I need a car, I don't need a Bugatti, right? But if there is no way to check that, right? Who gets the car? Who gets the Toyota Corolla? Who gets the Bugatti? Who gets the Ford? Right? Where and how are you going to make that um, decision? And who's going to make that decision when there is no money in play or no currency in play? What is the grounding piece in that society that you're
Again,
suggesting?
it comes back down to what they value.
And
They'll
exactly
make
that's what I
oh,
mean.
oh,
I
no,
would
no, hold on.
value a Bugatti
No,
more than a Toyota.
no, you're
I'm trying.
assuming that. You're assuming that. Not everyone wants a fast car. Not everyone wants a pickup. Not everyone wants, a slow little tiny buggy. Like you will produce things based on what we want. We can do that. Like, oh, okay, take for example, right? So, so in terms of mobile phones sold, I'm gonna see if I can hopefully get the article that I found. In terms of mobile phones that have been made since um like the 1980s, right?
Hmm.
There have been, and this is what's sold, not manufactured, right? There've been over 20 billion mobile devices.
Okay.
20 billion, right? Now, now, mind you, right? Like a lot of that tech can be, for example, recycled, right? So, and a lot of them are built actually to last, pretty long. Um, but again, there's the idea of, forced obsolescence, for example, right? And innovation and stuff like that. You got to take into account. But the amount that's actually like produced, is way higher. Because again, right, you'll want to make enough mobile phones to cover a market, right? So you'll ideally want to make really more than what you need, right? And you'll do that based on the demand. Now, sometimes a lot of the times the demand is not met. Sometimes a device might have a major flaw and you have to do a recall. And all of those recalls are trashed. Sometimes they've made just literally too much phones, but they can't like give it away for free because obviously that would immensely ruin things for them, financially speaking. So they have no choice but to dump and destroy them, right? And we do those things, they companies do those things, right? Because they value them. It's kind of like why
Yeah,
some restaurants
Batman. I think
would throw out
I think
food.
we're going in a circle right now. We're going in a circle right now. But again, what I keep coming back to this idea that the reality of our situation is that most things are scarce. Not we don't have unlimited supply of
Sure, but there's
anything,
not an
right?
unlimited amount of people.
It doesn't matter. It's always the supply is always going to be less than the demand,
That is
right?
definitely not
Generally
true. It
speaking,
doesn't. That
generally speaking, the
that is
supply is
not.
going to be less than the demand, right? The give me an
th-
example
That's
where
a
the
that's a
supply is higher
question.
than demand.
Well, that is the case, but you're not demonstrating to me, right? You're not illustrating whether or not it's artificial, right, or is it physical, right? Because again, right, there
The
is
very
an
fact
immense
that we
amount
live
of
on this planet,
resources,
the very fact we live on this planet means that we're restricted to the resources available on this planet,
which is an
right?
immense amount.
Okay, it may be an immense amount, but it's not unlimited. Most of the resources available on this planet are not accessible to us, especially probably in the next
But but
two,
but
three,
that's a
four, five
choice.
hundred years. How do you think it's a choice? Do you think human beings are capable of going
If
to the center of this planet and extract the
I mean, we wouldn't even.
mental and the core?
You know what? We probably could if we put our minds to it.
Okay, I don't disagree with that idea, but
But again, there's
I
no
don't think
monetary.
there's
There, there,
yeah.
it,
So
there's no monetary. There's no seen potential monetary value
and
to
why is that?
to that
And
pursuit.
this is where I disagree with you that the reason why there's no monetary incentive to do that is because the effort needed and the time needed to get that done is way too much. We're putting a lot of resources, not getting enough.
It's
You have
yeah,
to feed
it's
those
way too
mouths.
much because you have to pay people.
Obviously, you have to pay
Yeah,
people.
but what I'm saying is that if you don't, if it's a common global goal to do
How
that
is it a
thing,
noble goal?
money. No, I said if it's a common global goal for us as a species, like take for example mining asteroids, right? That's that's something that's very feasible that we can do, right? That we're probably getting closer and closer every day to doing stuff like that, right? If we were to get rid of the monetary aspect of it and we just solely focused on just doing that, so all of the people who are working on those specific projects get all their needs met and stuff like that, right? They're most likely going to cut down the amount of time that it would have normally taken us to be able to mine asteroids.
Yeah, but Batman, it's easy to say all their needs met and hard to actually do that, right?
Okay,
Because
gentlemen, I'm going to interrupt right here to say start finding a way to wrap it up and maybe find some middle ground or not.
yeah,
But I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. I'll be right back.
yeah, but I'm actually gonna head out as well. It's pretty late here, and no, it was a good discussion, Batman. I just think that what my main um, what my main criticism of the idea that you're proposing here is that I don't see an alternative that allows us to exist without the tool that we currently use, which is money, right? Which would allow us to work efficiently, which would allow us to gain or achieve what we're trying to achieve, or what we want to achieve, right? I just feel that we're missing that element with
I
in that
mean,
whole deal.
you're uh, again, I said I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's what you've grown up in. That's all you've known all of your life. And
Mhm.
so like the position that you have is not surprising to me, right?
Okay,
It's kind
so
of like
at least we
it,
agreed on that. That's great.
like it's kind of like, if someone has been, raised a Christian all of their life, and being a Christian is literally part of who they are, right? Like there's a good chance you're not going to like get that person to change their mind, right?
Actually,
Because as far as they're concerned, that's how reality operates. That's how it will always operate, and there's no other way to do so. So my position on this, right? It's not arbitrary in nature. A lot of it is done through research, studying previous cultures, currently existing cultures, for example, and how they exist without money. Like it exists, right? The only difference is that it comes back down to scale, right? It's just you'll only find this in small primitive communities,
all right.
right?
Okay, Batman.
So
All right,
it's just a
demolished.
scale issue.
Yeah, no, um, all right, guys. I think I don't think we're getting anywhere on this. All right, take care, Batman. It was nice talking,
Okay, no problem,
and
man.
hope to catch you another time.
Yeah, come through again. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure talking to
All right, take care. Bye.
Well, so long as you guys both enjoyed it, that's important.
you. Did you enjoy it?
I didn't understand half of it. I couldn't keep up actually.
Oh shit.
It's
I'll
it's
I'll
it's
try
so
to
far out of my experience range. I just don't know.
I'll 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 try to keep the philosophical discussions more into
No, no,
the
no. Wait. It's
religious
it's
and
just
spiritual
who's
stuff.
here. It's just who's here and what do they want to talk about. You know.
Yeah.
And but I have regular shows where I ask people to come on and debate me. This just ain't one of them.
Yeah.
You know.
To be fair, I was kind of like leading that to using that as a means to justify how the hive mind would work, um, or could manifest, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because having a hive mind with a society run with money seems very counterintuitive. Like oil and water, basically. But I digress.
Still, again, I thank you for hanging in there. I don't hear Sammy snoring, but I assume he's been gone so long that I hope he's taking a little sleep. To everyone in the side chat, everyone who watched this in the future, I want to express that I am deeply appreciative of your input, of your minds, of what you extend me in friendship. I'd like to extend you all of mine. Till next time, guys, I look forward to the day we're all great friends. Thanks a lot again, Batman.
You're welcome.